Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to our week one session of Photoshop. I am so thrilled you all are here today because we are going to have pretty much the funnest class that you'll have at school. I think you guys are going to love it a whole lot. This is Photoshop, where you are going to be able to do practically anything with this software program. We'll be able to use this program to make our own graphics and do illustrations and do photo retouching work and do image compositing. You can even do animations in Photoshop. You can even work a little bit in 3D in Photoshop. So you guys have a whole lot to look forward to. And this is, for most of you, your first design class ever. So congratulations, because we are we're going to be doing what you wanted to go to school for, which is graphic design. And so please do make this your most important class this mod. You know, I'm sure you're also taking maybe a management class, right? Maybe you're taking a history class, maybe an English class. And while those classes are, I'm sure, very important, this is your graphic design class. So this is what you went to school to do in the first place. So do make this course your priority. And, you know, what you do have to look forward to is this is going to be definitely the easiest course in the program, because we're not, you know, this is an entry-level, like, introductory course. So you don't have to worry about doing anything super hard, which is great, right? But you do want to make sure that you stay on top of your schoolwork and you get your work turned in on time. And this is really, really essential. Because, you know, because this is your first design class, you want to start off the program with an A, right? And my goal is for each and every one of you to get an A in this class, right? So do know, I'm willing to do my part. I'm willing to bend over backwards and do whatever I need to do to help you get that A. But do me a favor and turn your work in on time. You know, watch these class sessions all the way through, and be sure to follow step by step all the instructions that I give you on how to do each of your assignments. Also, be sure to take notes, because studies have shown that when you actually physically handwrite your notes, actually on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, the information goes in your brain and stays in there longer than if you type notes on your computer, or obviously if you don't take notes at all. And honestly, there is no way you are going to be successful in this class if you don't take notes. So if you don't yet have a piece of paper by your computer right now, please jump up, go run across the room, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen or a pencil, and be prepared to write down the instructions as I go over them. Because a lot of Photoshop's kind of like a recipe. I'll tell you, click here, then go here, then use this shortcut key. And if you're just sitting back and watching this like a TV show, I guarantee you, you will not remember everything that I tell you to do. And that's not to say that this is a difficult class. This class is the easiest class in the program. Also, this class is designed for you guys, which, judging by my previous classes that I've taught, about 99% of you have never used a Mac computer before, have never used any design software before. So this is like your first time ever jumping in and doing some design work, am I right? And so you might be, understandably, you might be a little worried. You might be thinking, oh no, you know, I just opened up Photoshop for the first time. There's all these buttons. There's all these different panels. You might be freaking out a little bit. Don't freak out. In fact, you should be excited, because I am going to walk you step by step through how to do everything. You're going to quickly find that it's actually really, really easy. And I've been teaching this particular course for about 10 years, and I would have to say 99% of my students end up passing this course with flying colors. I tell all my classes, it's pretty hard to fail this course, but you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And the reasons why people fail, which, you know, again, it's very, very rare that people fail this course. But the reason why people fail is because they seem determined to fail. Like, if you don't turn your assignments in on time, if you don't watch the demonstrations on how to do the assignment, if you don't reach out to me for help, you know, of course you're going to fail. And the thing is, I am going to be reaching out to you guys constantly, checking in throughout the week, seeing how you're all doing. And I would really super appreciate it if you reply back. So when I send a text message or an email, just checking in with you and saying, hey, how you doing in the class? Are you struggling with anything? Reply back. Let me know. Let me know if you're struggling with something. Let me know if you're doing great. Let me know that you're doing great, because I want to help you. It's my goal for you to succeed. And that said, our deadline for our weekly coursework is Saturday at midnight Mountain Time, and that is for every week. So do me a favor, and I understand that sometimes life happens, and sometimes an assignment is going to be late for whatever reason. Email me before the midnight Mountain Time deadline, letting me know that your work is going to be late. And if you email me and tell me, you know, something happened, life came up, you had an emergency, and your work is not going to be turned in on time, I'm going to be more than happy to give you that extra time. Where things are going to be difficult is if you don't let me know and you just don't turn in your assignment, and then I have to reach out to you wondering if you're dead in a ditch somewhere, and then you say, oh yeah, I just got busy, I didn't turn in my assignment. Well, I'm not going to be very generous about giving you the time, the extra time to resubmit your work. So what you need to do is let me know before the deadline if your work is going to be late. Okay, those of you who are new to Photoshop, feel free to give me a smiley face in the chat if you have never ever used Photoshop before. Remember what I said a few minutes ago? Do not worry if you have never used Photoshop before. You're going to find this to be super, super easy, and this course is designed for you. And that's not to say that I'm ignoring you guys who have previous Photoshop experience. You're going to learn things too if you have, because I'm going to teach you the industry standard way of doing these different tasks. You know, many of you, if you've used Photoshop before, maybe you're comfortable with it, but the ways that you've been doing things have been not quite the industry standard way of doing things. I'm going to teach you the industry standard way of doing things, and the reason why we do things a certain way in the industry is for maximum efficiency. And maximum non-destructive editing, which means you'll be able to make changes to your project regardless of whether you're making edits now or 5 months from now. So do not worry if this is your first time using Photoshop, because I'm going to walk you step by step through how to use this software. A good strategy for success. Okay, James, definitely email me about that MacBook Pro issue that you're having. So a good strategy for success is to attend the weekly class sessions, which you guys are doing now. And of course, if you can't attend them live, we have recordings where you'll be able to watch the recording. And then get out a piece of paper and actually physically hand write your notes with a pen or a pencil on that paper. And then as you're watching the recording, as you're doing your assignment, contact me immediately if you have questions or are stuck on something. And then we have multi-sessions. Multi-sessions are on Tuesday and Thursday, where you can come in and you can get one-on-one help with your assignments from me. So you can come into the multi-session, show me your assignment, and then I'll be able to point out what you might be doing wrong, what you could do to get your grade to be higher once you do turn it in, or I can troubleshoot with you any issues that you're having. And in addition to having my multi-sessions on Tuesday and Thursday at this very same time, you can go to the Student Success Center for one-on-one help, which is available 6 days a week. And those are both really good options for you. And then turn your weekly work in before Saturday at midnight, and be sure to let me know before the Saturday midnight deadline if your work is going to be late. Okay, so let's talk about that Photoshop installation. Many of you guys got your MacBook Pro for the first time and are ready to install the Adobe suite of programs. What we'll do is venture over to the IUGA community. And that is found here in your dashboard. And I'm going to pop over to my Safari so that we can find out where the IUGA community is. And here it is. It's this square here that says IU Graphic Arts Community. You are going to click on that. And you guys, this is a great opportunity to practice your note-taking skills. So on your piece of paper, write how to install Photoshop. And then you can underline it, and that's the title. And then you could write step 1, or just write the number 1 and then circle it. Click on IU Graphic Arts Community. Then scroll down to the IU Graphic Arts Community and click on the pre-learning assessment. And what you have to do is you have to take this pre-learning assessment, which is about 60 questions related to graphic design. And this is not graded. It's not going to affect your status in the program at all. It's not going to go on your permanent record. This is merely for us to assess how much information you have about graphic design before starting the program. Then you're going to take a similar test when you exit the program, and then we'll be able to tell how much you've learned in the months that you've been here. So you need to take that pre-learning assessment first, and then you will, after taking the pre-learning assessment, you will get an email that has instructions and your login and your registration number for installing Adobe. So then you'll venture over here to this link here that says Adobe, and you're going to click on it. And then you'll click on this link here that says installing Adobe for the first time. And this page is going to have a number of step-by-step instructions that teach you how to install Adobe. Okay? And it's pretty much that simple. You are required to have Adobe installed by Wednesday of this week. Okay? So ideally, get it installed tonight. And it's a good idea to have your, because the file is very large, consider doing your installation during the middle of the night, and make sure that if you live with someone, if you don't live by yourself, if you live with someone else, make sure that no one else in your house is using your internet while you are downloading and installing Adobe. So tell the other person that you might be living with, hey, you are not allowed to be on the internet right now. So no Netflix, no Amazon, no Twitter, no Facebook while you are installing, because it takes, it's a large file. It takes a long time to download. Then if you have questions, if you get stuck on the installation process, the person that you're going to want to talk to is Sean Childers Gray, and he is going to have an Adobe help session on Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Mountain Time, and that is the link to his room. And so you can go in there and you can get one-on-one help from him. You can also email him if you get stuck with any part of the installation process. And do me a favor, CC me on that email so I have a record that you are reaching out to contact him. Now, please keep in mind, he only works Monday through Friday. So if you email him on the weekend, you're not going to get a response. And also, your Photoshop installation is due on Wednesday. So do get your installation done by Wednesday. And because he's dealing with so many students who are installing Photoshop right now, he may be kind of backlogged in his emails. And sometimes when you get a lot of emails, they go onto the next page of your inbox and you don't see them. So if you don't get a response from Sean in 24 hours, email him again politely. All of your correspondence with faculty members and administrators at the school should always be polite and professional, requesting the assistance that you need. And then again, CC me on those emails so that I can help you. Okay, let's venture into Photoshop. Now, once you have Photoshop installed, this is what it's going to look like. Now, keep in mind, I've had Photoshop for many years, so my workspace is going to be a little bit different than yours. When you open up Photoshop for the first time on your end, it's going to look ever so slightly different. So does anyone have? Okay, cool. Lillian, yeah, Lillian already installed all the Photoshop apps. Cool. So what I want to do is to give you guys a chance to see how you might see Photoshop when you install it for the first time. Does anyone have Photoshop open right now on their computer? And does anyone want to volunteer to share their screen and show us what you're seeing? So if anyone has a Photoshop up on their laptop right now, go ahead and hit share screen. And that way we can see your version of Photoshop and how it's ever so slightly different when you start it up, but it's the same. All of the panels are the same. All the tools are the same. So Bree, go ahead or anyone, go ahead and hit share screen and then click desktop. Perfect. And then venture over and open up your Photoshop. Thank you so much for sharing. And you can open up Photoshop by going to the blue faces at the bottom left side of your screen. The two blue faces there. And then click on Applications after you open that. And then double click on Adobe Photoshop CC 2018, which is the blue one at the bottom. And that says PS. Cool, thank you so much. And then click on that blue square one more time. Perfect. And so this is your startup screen. So notice it looks a little bit different because you are opening it for the first time, whereas I've already opened it before. So I don't have this welcome screen, but if you click on the Create New button, that is where you can make your new document. And let's actually make our document the correct size. Let me go into the classroom really quick and just check and see what size we have to make our document. I think it is 1024 by 768. But what you'll do first is see where it says inches. You're going to change your inches to pixels. And you guys, this is something where you're going to want to be writing this down. So step one is change inches to pixels. And then you are going to make this the correct size, which is 1024. So for width, type in 1024. Perfect. And then for height, type in 768. And then for resolution, type in 72. And these are the settings for your first project in Photoshop. And then hit create. And now your workspace looks exactly the way that mine looks. And the main panels that you are going to be working with are the layers panel on one side and the tool panel on the other. And those are the only two panels that we really need to worry about for the next 4 weeks. Okay, thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate that. I am going to now switch over and share my screen. And before we dive into making our first project, I want you to take a look at the assignment requirements. So be sure to read the assignment and be sure to really pay attention to this part here. You are going to be submitting your file as a JPEG. So D'Angelica just asked, what is the resolution? The resolution is how many dots or pixels per inch of image. And we're making something for the screen. So the standard screen resolution is 72. Yeah. So we're making a document that's 72. If we were to make something for print, we would make it 300. So this is the one area that a few students have been not paying attention and submitted their file as a .psd instead of a .jpeg. So just please make sure that before you turn in your project, you turn it in as a JPEG. And then pay attention to the rubric here. This is how you're going to be graded on your assignment. So making your document the correct size and resolution is worth 30 points. So we already did that. So we've already all earned 30 points so far. And then utilize at least 3 of Photoshop's shape layers. So that's what we're going to learn next. And that is going to be worth 85 points. And then submitting the right file type and naming it the right way and turning it in on time is going to be worth 5 points. Now you might be wondering, well, what's an example of something I can do for this project? The sky is the limit as far as what you can do for this project. This is your chance to be creative, and there's really no right or wrong way to do it. If you look at these benchmarks here, these benchmarks are examples that have been done by previous students. You can see how they look. So here's a couple different examples of projects that have been done by students in the past. So experiment, have fun. Okay, and I'm going to now walk you through how to do this assignment. Okay, so step 1, we're going to make a new document. I showed you on the other student's screen how to make a new document when you're starting up Photoshop for the first time and you have that whole welcome screen. That's supposed to make it easier for you. If you've opened up Photoshop before and you've made a new document before, you will no longer have that open welcome screen. So when you open up Photoshop, it'll probably look something like this. Now to make a new document, you'll go up to File at the top of the screen, File at the top of the screen, and write this down. So if I were writing your notes, I would write my title as How to Do the Week 1 Assignment. And I'd underline that. And then I'd go Step 1, or I just write 1 and circle it. 1, go to File, New. So I'd probably write File, and then a little arrow, and then I'd click on the word New. File, New. Step 2, you're going to change your inches to pixels. You're going to make your width 1024. Your height is going to be 768. And your resolution is going to be 72. And then you're going to click OK. Ta-da, we have made our first project. Now we get to do the fun part. And remember, this is the part where you get to do pretty much whatever you want. Step 1 is we want to change the background color. We don't want to have just a plain white background. So I am going to first make a new layer in order to change the background color. This is an important aspect of working in Photoshop. Every time we make a change, we put it on a separate layer. So I'm going to make a new layer 2 ways. Write this down. Either by hitting Shift-Command-N if you're on a Mac, or Shift-Control-N if you're on a PC. Shift-Command-N if you're on a Mac, Shift-Control-N if you're on a PC. You can also make a new layer the long way by going down to the bottom of the Layers panel and clicking on the square that has a little triangle shape in the corner. Next, we're going to use our Paint Bucket tool, which is found over on the left side of your screen in the tool panel. And the color that we put on the Paint Bucket tool is going to be the color that we paint with. So I can either choose the color for the Paint Bucket tool over here on my color swatches, and I can choose the color here. Or I can click on this little foreground color swatch here, and I can choose a color from over here. Now, once I've chosen a nice dark blue color, I can click, and ta-da, now my background is a nice dark blue color. Now we're ready to make some shapes. So remember, just like I did to make the new layer for the background, I can hit Shift-Command-N or Shift-Control-N if I'm on a PC. And I can also click on the new layer icon, which is a square with a little triangle next to it, next to the trash can. Now, we're going to use our shape layer tools to make an interesting design. I'm going to bring my cursor over here to the left side of your screen. And here's an important thing about Photoshop, is different tools are roommates together. So I chose, for instance, the Paint Bucket tool to fill in my background, but there's a chance that maybe you don't immediately see the Paint Bucket tool. Maybe you see on your tool panel the Gradient tool. And so if you're looking around your tool panel and you're wondering, I don't see my Paint Bucket tool, where's my Paint Bucket tool? Click on your Gradient tool, and you'll find that the Paint Bucket and the Gradient are roommates together. They live on the same button. So same for the shape layer tools. I see a little amoeba here, little amoeba shape. You might see a rectangle tool shape at the bottom of the tool panel. You might see a rounded rectangle tool. You might see an ellipse tool. Whatever is showing up on that button is going to reveal a whole number of other tools as long as you just click and hold on it and see, look, all of these other tools show up. Please don't confuse the shape layer tools with the marquee tools. The marquee tools are found at the top of the tool panel, and those create selections. They don't create shapes. So let's start with the ellipse tool for now. And what I'm going to do is change my foreground color by clicking on my foreground, and I'll choose a completely different color from my background, a nice bright orange color. And what I'm going to do is show you why it's really important when you're drawing shapes to keep your shapes in shape mode so that things can be easily resized, okay? Notice I had chosen the orange as my foreground color, but for whatever reason, it didn't show up as my fill color as well. So I'm just gonna click on this button here that says fill and make sure that my fill is orange, because if my fill is nothing, my circle is not gonna show up. Okay, so first things first, I'm gonna show you how not to make a shape by selecting pixels from one of the 3 options available up at the top of the screen. So after selecting the ellipse tool, go up to the top of the screen and you'll notice 3 options: shape, path, and pixels. Ideally, you will always want to work in the shape mode so that you can create a vector shape that can be easily resized. If, however, you use pixels mode, you're going to see that you're going to run into some problems. Watch. I'm going to hold down the shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle, and now I've made a nice little circle. And I might be happy with that circle for now. I might think that circle is great. But maybe as I'm designing, I decide that I want my circle to be a whole lot bigger. So I hit Command T, hold down the shift button. Oh, by the way, Command T is the shortcut key to resize something. So write that down. Command T. And the command button is located next to your space bar. And the button says command, and there's also a little icon there that looks like a freeway. Now what I'm going to do is hold down the shift button and click and drag at a diagonal angle. And oh no, see, as I'm resizing my circle, what has happened? It's become very blurry and pixelated. And you can see these individual squares of color, can't you?
Yes.
Perfect. So that's the problem with the pixels mode, is we've created a raster shape, which when we resize it, it ends up looking very, very bad. And now, raster shapes aren't always bad. All photographs are raster shapes. Digital paintings are raster shapes. It's okay to use raster shapes, but if you plan on stretching them and making them bigger, they are going to get blurry and pixelated, and that is bad. That's why you always want to start, if you use a raster shape, you want to be aware that you just are not allowed to resize it. Okay, so now I'm going to use the correct mode for making a shape, which is the shape layers mode, which creates something called a vector shape. And the vector shapes can be easily resized. So again, after selecting the ellipse tool, you'll then go up to the top of the screen. You have 3 options, either shape, path, or pixels. Just by default, just always use shape, okay? And then watch what happens. I'm going to hold down the shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle. And I've made a nice little circle. Already our circle looks slightly different. Don't let these little squares and the silvery line upset you. Those little squares and line are just telling you that this is a vector shape that can be easily resized. These little lines and squares are not going to show up when you actually print the thing or save it as a JPEG. So now let's say I've decided that I want to increase the size of my circle for whatever reason. So I hit Command T, write this down guys in your notes, Command T to resize, hold down the shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle. And see, unlike my previous attempt to resize something, this one looks nice and smooth. So the moral of the story is, when at all possible, always work in vector mode, which is the shape option when you're drawing shapes in Photoshop, because this option allows you to easily resize things. Now, after you've made your circle or your shape the size that you want it to be, hold that, hit enter or return, and it is now placed there. So a fun little window has popped up when we use the shape mode. This is the properties window, and you'll notice that it corresponds to the properties that are available at the top of the screen there. So in this handy window, you can change the color, and you can change the appearance of your shape. So let's say I want to put a kind of maybe a pinkish stroke or outline on my circle. I'm going to click on this icon here that says Set Stroke Type, and I'll select a nice little pink color. There we go. I want something a little bit more muted. There we go, kind of pinkish orange, I think goes better. And I can increase the size of my line by clicking on this button here. This is 5 points, and I can just stretch it and make it bigger. And then let's say I don't want it to be a solid line, I want it to be a dotted line. I can click on this drop-down menu here. Yes, Bree, hit Command-T, and then when you're ready to resize, hold down the Shift button and click and drag from the corner. So I can click on this little drop-down menu here, and I can either make this a dashed line, which is kind of cool, or a circular dotted line. So you can change a whole bunch of things inside this properties window, but if you don't want that properties window there, that's fine. Hit the X, make it go away. You can continue to make changes to your shape up here at the top of the screen. So I can, change my fill color. Let's say I'll make it a little bit of a different orange color, maybe like a yellowish color. I can change the colors like so. And same for the stroke. I can easily change the stroke color to whatever I want. Boop. Now let's have some fun with some more shapes, because you are required to use 3 different shape layers in this project this week. So first, I'm going to make a new layer. Every time we make a new change to the document, we always do it on a separate layer by hitting Shift Command N. And then I'm going to go to that same button where we got our ellipse tool, and I'm going to click and hold, and then I'm going to bring up my polygon tool. And watch this. This is a tool that people always go, wow, that's so cool. So pay attention and write notes. So if I venture over here to my little gear icon, once I've selected the polygon tool, this little gear icon up here at the top of the screen allows you to make stars, which is really cool. So I'm going to click on this little gear icon, and I'm going to click the checkbox that says star. I'll uncheck smooth indents for now, and I'll indent my sides by 99. Now I'll put 66 sides on my star, and I'm going to get rid of my stroke. I'm going to hit that little gray box with the red line through it so that I have no stroke at all. I'm going to change my fill color to maybe something that's a little bit more reddish, orangish pink, a little more magenta, just for something different. And now watch. And you can't see it now because it's kind of a shiny silvery path, but I've made this interesting starburst, right? Using the polygon tool. And with Photoshop, all of these layers can be easily moved around. So let's say, you know, right now I'm on my polygon tool and it's on top of my ellipse. I can click and drag my polygon underneath my ellipse. And now I have something like this. It's kind of like a sun. Pretty cool, right? So let me do that again. This time I'll make a different kind of star. Select my polygon tool. This time I'll make my fill maybe just a slightly darker purple color. And this time I'll use smooth indents, and I'll indent my sides maybe by 85. And then I'll put 7 sides on my star. Click and drag, ta-da! So you can make any type of star that you want using the polygon tool. So the indent is a setting on your stars. That means how far from the center the points are gonna be. So watch, I'll increase the indent to, let's do 99 again. And see, now the points are longer. It's kind of hard to tell with the smooth indents. So I'm going to turn off smooth indents. And so this is with a 99% indent. And then this would be with a like 70% indent. See how it's kind of different? Play around with these settings, guys. You can also click on smooth corners, and that makes a completely different thing. It makes kind of a more cartoony, roundish, softer edge star. Smooth indents mean that it's a slow circle from the point to the center. Whereas if you don't have smooth indents, it's gonna look like more of like a classic star where everything, instead of being a round line, is very straight. So smooth corners and smooth indents means it's gonna be a curved line instead of a straight line. So we made a whole bunch of stars there, which is fun. Now let's make some more interesting shapes. If you go to your custom shape tool, which looks like a little amoeba down here at the bottom of all of your shape layers, you get access to the custom shape library, which is available up here at the top of your screen. And you have all of these different shapes to play with. Now, I have more shapes than maybe you have because I like to make my own custom shapes. I also like to download lots of custom shapes from the internet. Eventually, if you guys stay on in the program and you take intermediate Photoshop or advanced Photoshop, you'll learn how to make your own custom shapes and save them to your custom shape library. So let me take a shape here. I'll take this clock shape. Oh, and by the way, you can also just open up all of the free custom shapes at once that are available with Photoshop by going to this little gear icon here and then clicking on the word all and then clicking on the word append, and it will open up all of your shape libraries at once, and you'll be able to see all the different shapes that you have. Okay, so I'm gonna go to a little clock here, and I'll watch. And I'll change the color. I'll do something that's a little bit orangey. hold down the shift button, click and drag. Ta-da! And now I want to move, I made that shape a little off center, so I'll hit V. No. But there, oh, and I accidentally changed the color of my star as I did that. That's okay. I'll start again. I'm going to make a new layer, custom shape tool, change my fill to a nice little yellowy color. Select my clock from the custom shape tool. There we go. Now my clock is super light, but I think what I'll do is I'll change my fill to something slightly different. Like that. There we go. Okay, so how do you move things around? What you do is you just click on the layer that you want to move. So I want to move shape 1, which is the clock. So I click on the layer that I want to move. I hit the letter V on my keyboard, not Command V, not Control V, just the letter V by itself. And that brings up the Move tool. And then I can move things around like this. Right, so if I wanted to move a star around, I click and see I can move the stars around. And that is the Move tool. This is the Move tool here. Now let's save it. So for all of your assignments and all of your classes, you're always going to want to save the native file format. The native file format is the format that has all of your layers and that can only be opened with Photoshop. The native file format is the format that you can make changes to. But you are not going to be submitting the native file format. You are simply going to be saving and backing up and preserving your native file format. So eventually when you take your capstone class, you can go back to all of your native files. You can change them, you can edit them, you can revise them, and then you can put them in your portfolio. For your class assignments, you're going to be turning in JPEGs only though. So first, let's save our native file format by going to File, Save As. Write this down, guys. So I'd call this section of your notes, Saving Your Files, and then underline that. Saving files. Step 1, go to File, Save As. Now we're going to make a folder on our desktop for all of our DES 104 schoolwork by clicking on Desktop, clicking on New Folder, and then clicking DES 104, and then I'll just call it April. Okay, so now I have a folder on my desktop called DES 104 April. And I'm going to name this DES 104_week1 assignment _ your name .psd. And .psd is the Photoshop document. The Photoshop document, this has all of your layers, and this Photoshop document is what you're going to be saving and backing up. Next, I'm going to save the JPEG. And the JPEG is what you're going to be turning in. So to save the JPEG, we're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web, File, Export, Save for Web. JPEG very high, JPEG high is fine. Just select JPEG from this drop-down menu here. And then hit Save. browse to our folder, DES104 April, JPEG, hit save, and ta-da! And that JPEG that got saved on your desktop is what you're going to be turning in. Any questions so far? Oh, if you create art and you want to share it with like the whole school so everyone can see it, you are welcome to post it in the discussion at the IUGA community. That's a great place to share your art. And you're also welcome to just post it in the discussion for our class as well. You know, definitely feel free to share your stuff. Okay, I want to give you guys a chance to see some of the amazing artwork that has been done by students in the past. So I put together a little video of some awesome student projects. So have a look and enjoy, and then when I come back, I'll talk about our discussion and our assessment. Alrighty, fun times, right? I hope you guys enjoyed that. For your discussion this week, you are going to be talking about the difference between vector and raster artwork, which is something that we've talked about here in this class assignment. And a really important part of, talking about graphic design and all of your participation in your class discussions is using good imagery and embedding imagery in your discussion. So let's talk a little bit about embedding imagery. So to get started with your discussion, you just click on the reply link, and let's start off with let's take a look at some vector designs. And so you want to maybe put in an example of a vector design, right? So you want to embed that into your discussion. So let's look at how we go about doing that. First, we will go to Google. And let's look for a vector swirl design. And you're going to go to Google Images. And let's find one that has a nice color. And what we also want to do, this is a good one. So let's say you've decided that that is the design that you want to embed in your discussion. So I'm going to get to copyright images in just a bit. For your assignments, we want to make sure that we do not use copyright protected images. For your discussion, it's okay to use copyright protected images. Now, what I'm going to do is copy the URL to this picture. Now, I can either copy the picture directly or I can copy the URL. So let's copy the picture directly by holding down the control button, clicking on, holding down the control button and clicking on the image, and then clicking copy image, copy image. Now I can go over here to the discussion and I can hit Command V on your keyboard. And see, now I've pasted the image into our discussion. Let's say for whatever reason that technique is not working for you and you need to copy the image URL instead. Let's go to a different image. Say we'll use this one. So what you can do instead is hold down the control button, click on the image, and then click copy image address, copy image address. Now we're going to go over here, and now we're going to look for the embed image icon, which is the kind of a picture looking icon that has like a mountain and a sun. You're going to click on that. And then you're going to click on the blank URL space and hit Command V to paste. And then you're going to click Update. And so that is the way that you can embed images into your discussion. Now, this is only going to work if the images are on the internet somewhere. If these are images that are on your computer and not on the internet, we are not going to be able to see them because we don't have access to your computer. The URL that is being used to paste these images in here is a URL that's connected to the internet. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions on embedding images into your discussion board posts? And this is a required part of your discussion. You need to embed images into your discussion board post. Any questions? Okay, another really important thing about your discussion board posts is that all of your posts need to be posted by Wednesday. Your initial discussion board post needs to be posted by Wednesday. It needs to be 150 words or more. It needs to have an embedded image. It needs to be an APA format. And then you are required to have 2 response posts to your fellow classmates that need to be 50 words or more. And those need to be posted by Saturday. To take a look at an example of APA discussion, you can click on this link here that will show you how to properly format an APA discussion board post. And this is really important because it's going to be required for all of your classwork, not just in this class, but in future classes as well. To see some examples of successful discussion board posts that have been done for this very topic, you can click on the benchmark samples and you can view them. And you can see here, this is a successful post. It's an in-depth post that has cited sources. So the student has an outside source where they cite who the author is, they cite there's quotes around the terminology that's being used. There's quotes around the whole passage that was quoted. There is embedded imagery, and there is an APA formatted citation down here at the bottom. Please keep in mind that for all college level work, whether you're at this school or other schools, or whether you're in this class or other classes, college level writing work should be 80% your own original opinion and analysis. Write this down. 80% of your discussion board posts should be your own original opinion and analysis. And only 20% should be quotes or paraphrased information from outside sources. So we're really looking for 80% of that content to be your own original opinion and analysis. And D'Angelica, if you wish to cite the images that you chose, just feel free to include them in the works cited section at the bottom of your discussion board post that says cited sources. Okay, so this is how you're going to be graded. Yeah, citing your images is not required, because if you embed them, the link, it's going to be in the metadata, the link to your image. So it's not necessary to cite them. But do be sure to cite any paraphrased information that you use from outside sources, and understand that cited sources is a requirement. Okay, your assessment this week is going to be really fun, a throwback to elementary school days. You are going to be doing a coloring page. Right? If you ever thought you would be doing coloring in school, probably not in college. Well, you are, and this is going to be probably like one of your funnest and easiest assignments in your design classes. So the first step with this digital coloring is to download the image, and then we're going to be using a combination of blending modes, selections, and painting tools to paint in this image. Now, let's definitely be sure to take a look at some of the examples. So as you can see in this one, the selections are nice and clean. The coloring is nice and clean. At least 3 different colors are used, and the whole design is colored in. And doing something like this is required for getting full credit. If you take a look at the rubric, submitting a JPEG is required. Naming it the correct way and turning it in on time is required. You want to use at least 4 different selection techniques as you are coloring in your assignment. You want to use at least 4 different colors, and you need to change the blending mode of the line art to multiply so that all of the coloring can be done underneath the lines. This is really important. Okay, so let's go through the process. So first we're going to download the file just by clicking on it. Ta-da! There it is. It opened in preview. Totally not useful for us because we want to open that in Photoshop instead. So I'm going to hit X. And now let's open up our line art in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to File, Open, not New, File, Open. And now I'm going to go to Downloads, and there is my Assessment 1 image. And then I'm going to click Open. You guys, please, please, please pay attention to this next part. It's very, very important that you follow the next steps exactly, or else your assessment will not turn out colored correctly, okay? It is important that you follow these steps exactly, okay? So in your notes, I would recommend writing at the top of this next section as how to do assessment 1, and then underline it. And then of course the step 1 is to bring in this file. So you do that by going to File, Open, and then browsing to the file. Okay, so write 1, circle, File, Open, and then browse to the file. Step 2, double click on your background layer. Write this down, guys. Step 2, double click on your background layer. This window will open up and you click on OK. And what that does is it unlocks your background. So now you can put other layers underneath it. Step 3. Is everyone ready? Does anyone have any confusion on anything that I've gone over so far? Any questions? Are you ready for me to go on to step 3? Okay, good. We are going to change the blending mode of layer 0 from normal to multiply. You're going to see why in a moment. Layer 0 gets changed from normal to multiply by going up here to this drop-down menu and changing that mode from normal to multiply. Does everyone see that? Does everyone have that written down? Next, we're going to lock layer 0 by clicking on the lock icon. That makes sure that we don't accidentally color on our line layer. Next, I'm going to make a new layer by either hitting Shift Command N or by clicking the new layer icon at the bottom of the layer panel, which is a square with a little triangle up next to it. Next, this is really important. Write this down, guys. You're going to click layer 1 and you're going to drag it underneath layer 0. So layer 0 is on top, layer 1 is underneath. Layer 0 is on the multiply mode, and the little lock icon is next to it. Layer 1 is underneath. And now watch this. Layer 1, I can get my paint bucket tool out, and I can click, and look, I've already colored in most of the picture already. I need to add 3 more colors. Now the reason that this worked, where I can color on layer 1, but my lines stay nice and clean, is because of the multiply mode. If I had this on the normal mode, it would just be a white layer and you couldn't see underneath it. Multiply makes white transparent, so it becomes like a transparent piece of plastic with black lines on it, and so you can put your coloring underneath. Make sense? So now I'm going to make a new layer above layer 1 called layer 2. And with layer 2, I am going to do some coloring. So we have all sorts of different tools, selection techniques, and tools that you can use for making selections. Now we're going to use some very broad tools first that color in whole sections of a paper. And then we're going to use more precise tools that color into specific sections. So first, let's use our rectangle marquee tool. And this is the easiest selection tool there is. Because all you have to do is click and drag. And notice I'm on layer 2. Layer 2 is selected. Click and drag, and I have this rectangular area here that I can color in. So now I can go to my paint bucket tool. I can select any color I want from my set foreground color option. Let's do a slightly reddish. See, and now I have this nice little area at the bottom all colored in. Now to undo my selection, to deselect it, I'll hit, write this down guys, write this down. To deselect, hit Command D. So now I no longer have that section selected. Let's do it again. So rectangle marquee tool, I've selected this little area here. Notice I'm underneath the line art layer, I'm on top of the orange layer. I can use my paint bucket tool to color in this area. And then I can hit Command D to deselect. Let's use a different color. A little more yellow. Now I'm going to use another selection tool that's really easy to use, which is the elliptical marquee tool. And hold down the shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle. And I'm just going to continue to hold down the shift button. And I can make a whole bunch of little areas selected. Now I can hit G for my paint bucket tool and color them all in. Command D. Okay, so those are making whole sections of my design colored in. But I want to get like really precise with these little details up here. So for that, I probably want to use the magic wand tool. Now this is where it gets a little tricky because you're going to have to constantly go back and forth between different layers. So pay attention and write this down. So I'm going to go back to layer 0 because I need the lines on layer 0 in order to make this selection. So notice layer 0 is now selected, and I know it's selected because it has blue around it. Then I'm going to go over here in my tool panel to my magic wand tool, which is on the same button as my quick selection tool. And the quick selection tool looks like a little paintbrush with a kind of dotted circular circle behind it. So if you see this tool, click and hold, and then wait until the magic wand tool pops up. Magic wand tool. Now you can select, zoom in really close. By the way, I'm using Command +sign to zoom in. Command +sign, and I'm using 2 fingers on my trackpad to navigate around my picture. Command +sign to zoom in, 2 fingers on my trackpad to zoom around the picture. Now let's say I want to select this area. All I have to do is click on it. Let's say though, I want to select more than one area. If I continue to hold down the Shift button and select different areas, pretty cool, right? I can select multiple areas at once, and that will allow me to color in multiple areas at once. So I'm holding down the Shift button to select all of these areas. But now what do I do if I want to color them? I can't color them on layer 0 because 1, I locked it, and 2, I don't want to because I don't want to mess up my lines. So I can either color them on layer 2, or I can make a new layer above layer 2 by hitting Shift Command N and coloring them on layer 3. And now what I'll do is I'll select a completely different color, maybe a little bit more green. Get my paint bucket tool out, and ta-da! Colored in all of those areas like that. And this is the technique that I would recommend for coloring this project in. And I'm just gonna hit Command D to deselect, and then go back to layer 0, get my magic wand tool out, and I will hold down the Shift button to select multiple areas. See what else. And if you use the magic wand tool, you should be able to get this done fairly quickly. So I'm just holding on the Shift button, selecting all of these. Yep, I have to go up to layer 0 at the top to use the magic wand tool because I need the lines. Okay, and then once I've selected all of those areas, I could go back down to layer 3. I can get my paint bucket tool and I can click on those areas and then paint them all in. And then I can hit Command D when I'm done. Pretty cool, right? So using that technique, you can fill this all in pretty fast, I think. You're gonna be turning this in as a JPEG, but you always wanna save your native file format. So I'm gonna go to File, Save As, and I'm gonna go to our desktop. Remember I made the DES104 folder, and I'm gonna call this DES104_Week1 assessment _ your name. Save this as a Photoshop document. And now the file that you're gonna be turning in is a JPEG. So I'm gonna go to File, Export, Save for Web. Write this down, guys. File, Export, Save for Web. File, Export, Save for Web. JPEG high, and then hit Save. And that JPEG is what you're going to be turning in. Any questions on this? So just go up to layer 0, click all the little areas that you want to color. Choose a color. Go down to layer 3, use your paint bucket tool, and fill in as needed. So you have to use a total of 4 colors to get full credit on this. Okay, now it has been known for some students to feel maybe overwhelmed by their first experience with online school. And yes, use your first name and last name when saving. And yes, you're welcome to use more than 4 colors, absolutely. And so I made a little cartoon of some issues that have come up with students in the past. And there's a moral to this cartoon. See if you can identify what the moral or message of this little cartoon I made is.
Hello. I noticed that the file you submitted for your Photoshop homework was a 500 megabit PSD document. Due to the fact that it will take me about 3 hours to download a file that big and I have 120 other students to grade, would you mind submitting a small JPEG file under 500 kilobits in addition to your PSD document?
How do I make a JPEG file?
I have explained how to do this in both the lectures and in the video I made entitled Step-by-Step Instructions on How to Do Your Photoshop Homework. You can also find out how to make a JPEG in the textbook. Have you watched my lectures?
No. I don't have time to watch the lectures. I work a full-time job.
You should definitely try to watch the lectures, because there are a lot of important instructions on how to do your class assignments. At the very least, do try to watch the video I made called Step-by-Step Instructions on How to Do Your Photoshop Homework.
Where is that video?
It's in the announcement section of the classroom in bright red bold letters at the top of the screen.
I don't think I have time to watch that video. Can you just tell me how to save a JPEG?
I'm starting to worry that maybe you didn't do your Photoshop homework correctly if you don't even know how to save a JPEG. You should watch the video instructions and make sure you did everything correctly.
I don't have time to watch these videos. Just tell me how to do the Photoshop homework.
Okay. First open Photoshop. Then, go to File, New, and make a document that is 8 by 10 and 72 dpi in RGB mode.
Whoa. This is too hard. There is too much to remember. How am I going to possibly learn this all?
I think it would be much easier if you just watch the video I made, and take notes on it, and then pause, rewind and rewatch the parts that are confusing to you.
RGB. DPI. This is so confusing. I'm never going to remember this all. Photoshop is too hard.
Thousands of people learn Photoshop every day. It's not hard at all, and actually pretty fun.
There's too much to remember. There's all these tools and layers. I'm so confused. I couldn't learn this online. I'm taking Illustrator at the same time. This is too hard.
I've taught hundreds of students Photoshop online. They all had to learn Illustrator at the same time. Most of them passed both classes and most of those got A's. I know you can as well.
I have a job and a family. I need to spend time with my family.
Most students taking online classes have jobs and families. They have succeeded and you can too.
School is taking too much time away from my family. My family comes first.
Lots of students at this school work jobs and have families.
My kid has the flu. I need to take care of him.
If you were sick, would you expect your kid to ignore his or her school work to take care of you? If you work hard in this class and get good grades, you'll be able to get a good job and send your kid to college one day. Don't you want your kid to see how important school is, and how making excuses only ends up costing more money and time in the long run?
I'm not making excuses. Photoshop is too hard. I'm too old to learn new things. I'm never going to get this.
Most my students are older. Sure, the first week of class is always a little difficult, but everyone usually catches on as long as they do the reading, watch the lectures, videos, and email me if they have questions.
Maybe I should take this class on campus instead of online.
In many ways, learning online is easier, because you can rewatch the lectures as many times as you want. You have immediate access to a tutor several times a week, and you can call or email me anytime if you need help.
This is too hard. I keep making mistakes. Maybe I should switch to another school.
I know it seems difficult. But if you quit now, you won't get to find out how fun Photoshop can be and how. I do hope you will watch the lectures and videos and then visit tutoring or call me if you need help. This is only the first week. Don't quit now.
So what do you guys think is the moral or message I was trying to convey with that cartoon? Yeah, stop making excuses. If that student had put half the energy that he puts into making excuses into just doing his work, he would definitely end up being a whole lot better off than if he keeps on making excuses all the time. Excuses are not gonna make your grade better. And it's important to remember that each of these classes costs you $1,500. So if you fail a class, you're going to have to pay an additional $1,500. You will get billed for that. That's not covered by financial aid. So just those Fs cost you pretty much the cost of a European vacation. So would you rather go to Europe or would you rather get an F in your class? If you're going to get Fs in your classes, just stop, just drop school, have that money spent on, vacations and fun time. Don't keep on getting Fs is what I'm saying. And know that I'm willing to do whatever I can to bend over backwards to help you. And there's really no reason anyone in this class should end up with anything less than an A. Because this is your first design class. This is the easy peasy level of things. And this is where, and you have, multi-sessions you can come to. You have your Student Success Center that you can come to for help. And you just have so many resources to get help. And plus it's really easy. So if you're gonna get a B, Get that B in your management class, get that B in your algebra class. Your design class is the reason why you came to school in the first place. So get an A in your design classes. Okay, this next video, I go over some common reasons why students might end up with less than A grades in their assignments. So see if you can identify the 4 main reasons why the student earned a low grade in his assignments.
Why did I get such a low grade on my Photoshop homework?
Did you see the feedback I wrote for you in the grad book?
There was no feedback.
Yes, there was. If you click on the score you received, a window will open up showing you the feedback I wrote on your assignment. Let me explain the 3 things you did incorrectly on this assignment. 1. The image you used in your design was copyright protected and illegal to use.
No, it wasn't. I found it for free while searching on Google.
Yes, that's the problem. In my lectures and in the classroom I have stated repeatedly that Google is not a stock photography company. The images you find on Google are copyright protected. They belong to the artists and photographers who made them and you don't have permission to use them.
So how am I going to get permission to use that image? Contact the photographer. That's a lot of work.
You can do that. But I would suggest instead of using copyright protected images found on Google, you visit a free stock exchange website and use free stock photos for your class assignments.
Which websites are stock photo websites?
Again, I've provided this information numerous times in the lectures and in the classroom. But okay, one stock photography website is Stock Exchange. You can just Google stock exchange and then it's the first website that comes up that's not related to the stock market. The URL is isxc.hu.
How do I download images from Stock Exchange?
You have to register for a free account. And then you click on the thumbnail image and the photo will open in a large window. Next, click and drag the large photo to your desktop.
Wait a minute. This cute image of a bunny has a watermark over it. How do I get that watermark off the image?
Not all the stock photos on Stock Exchange are free. You have to pay for some.
But I don't want to pay.
I know. That's why you should only use the free images. Those are the ones that don't have watermarks on them.
Can't I just use the clone stamp tool to get rid of the watermark?
No. Trying to use an image that you didn't pay for is stealing and it would earn you a poor grade.
So what else did I do wrong on my assignment?
Your design has numerous spelling, grammatical, punctuation and capitalization errors.
I thought this was a Photoshop class, not an English class.
It is, but if you expect to get work as a professional designer, you need to make sure that your designs have no mistakes in them whatsoever. If you design for a client and give them a product with a bunch of typos on it, you will never get work from that client ever again.
But I want to work for a big design firm. At big companies, they have people who check for mistakes.
Yes, and if the people who check for mistakes see you making mistakes like this, you will be fired.
What was the last thing I did wrong?
One of the images in your design is very blurry and pixelated. It looks like it was originally a small image that you sized to make bigger and it became pixelated in the process.
Yes, I needed a picture of a house. The only picture I could find was small, so it had to be resized.
Are you telling me that you couldn't find a photo of a house that was larger than 2000 pixels?
That's right. The only pictures of houses that I could find were small.
In the future, if you ever can't find an image that is high resolution and you can't photograph your own image, then you need to change your concept. Pixelated images are unacceptable. You need to make sure that your design looks clean and professional so that you can use it in your professional portfolio.
Can't I redo my assignment?
Normally I don't let students redo their assignment. But if you can swap out those images for free stock photos and fix your typos in the next 60 minutes, I will accept it.
60 minutes? How can I erase and clone stamp out all my typos and photos in 60 minutes?
Are you telling me that your photos and texts are all merged together and you didn't save your separate layers?
Merged? No. Of course not. I don't know how to merge. I made my design all on the background layer.
From the very beginning of class, I have stressed the importance of keeping each of your elements on separate layers. You need to use non-destructive editing techniques so that you have the most flexibility in your revisions.
I don't have time to make new layers. I was in a hurry.
Then it looks like you won't have time to resubmit your assignment.
Okay, so what were the 4 mistakes that student made in his assignment? So 1, he had spelling and grammar mistakes on his assignment. 2, what else did he do? He didn't put his changes on separate layers. He used copyright protected imagery. Very good. That's 3. What's one more thing he did incorrectly? Didn't he use a small, low-resolution image that he stretched to make bigger? Yeah. So back when I made that video, you couldn't use Google Images because they were all assumed to be copyright protected. But now there are ways on Google that you can search for non-copyright protected images to use for your assignments. So let me walk you through the process of using license-free, non-copyright protected images in your assignments. So let's say we want to find, these swirl designs are great, but we want to find a swirl design that is not copyright protected. What you'll do is you'll go over here to Tools, and you're going to click on Usage Rights. And you're going to click on Labeled for Reuse Modification. Labeled for Reuse Modification. And then ideally, you want to find the image that is as large as possible. So you're going to go to Size, and you're going to go to Large, so that we only get large images to choose from. Now, let's find an interest. This is kind of an interesting pattern. Now, some of these websites you have to sign up for a free account. I know Wikimedia Commons you don't. So I'm going to click on the Wikimedia Commons. And then from here, we can download and save this image by clicking on the Save icon. Oh, never mind, that didn't do it. What we're going to have to do is Control-click and then Download Linked File As. Control-click, Download Linked File As. That didn't do it. They changed the thing. I'm just going to click on this. There we go. Now we've opened this up nice and big, and now we can download it. Control-click. Come on. Are you really not letting me download you? And yet another way is to click and drag to your desktop. Okay, so my Safari is being difficult right now. Let's click Visit. And let's see if it's going to let us download by holding down the Control button. There we go. Holding down the Control button and then clicking Save Image As. And then clicking Download. PNG is fine. And that is how you download images. Like, you know, you can find something like this is cool. Click Visit. Let's find that file over here. Where is it? Click on this. Let's see if it's going to let us download this. Control-click, Save Image As. Save it to our Downloads folder. Good. And now we can use this in our project if we want. So here I am back at my wallpaper project. And let's say I want to add some of the images that I've found on the internet to my project. Yeah, patience. The linked file was not working for me, so I decided to click on the saved file. Now, what I'm going to do is make a new layer, of course, and then go to File, Place Embedded, File, Place Embedded. Then go to the Downloads, and I'll find this interesting design here, and I'll hit Place. Now, after you bring an image in by placing it, you can go up to the top of the screen and see what percentage we're viewing it at. So right now, I'm only viewing this image at about 50%. So up here at the top of the screen, I can change the width and height. Let me bring that again. File, Place Embedded. So I can view the width and height up at the top of my screen, and I can change the size of it here. So I can change the width to 63%, and the height to 63%. And I want to keep both numbers the same. And see, now it fills up the whole screen. You always want the width and the height to be the same exact number. And you may be wondering, well, I can't see my design anymore. What you can do is use, just like we used for the assessment, you can use blending modes to blend images together. So remember, for our assignment, for our assessment, you used the multiply. Let's see what this looks like on the multiply blending mode. And see, now with the multiply blending mode, now the dark lines in that design are showing through and the colors are looking more transparent. D'Angelica, yes, you can absolutely use the magic wand tool to create a layer mask, which is something that we're going to learn how to do in week 3. But you're also welcome to use this week 1 time to experiment, and you'll find that there's lots of different blending modes that create lots of different interesting results. So right now I have it on the multiply blending mode, but let's see what the overlay blending mode looks like. So the overlay blending mode has a completely different effect to it. Let's see what the color blending mode looks like. And that's another completely different effect. So you are more than welcome to scroll through these different blending modes and see what each of them do, what each of the results are going to be, and feel free to use them for your project. Now keep in mind, blending modes are not required for your week 1 assignment. This is just something that you can experiment with as you overlay pictures on top of your design. We are going to learn in depth a lot about blending modes in week 2 and week 3. So if you are a little bit confused or worried about this whole concept, don't worry, because we're going to cover it in week 2 and 3, and you don't have to worry about it at all. Okay, so just some different things that you can do with this. Something else that you're more than welcome to, Amanda, adding a picture to your design is not a requirement for week 1. I'm just showing you something that you're welcome to experiment with. So if you choose to use an image and add it to your design, whatever you use is totally fine. You are also welcome to experiment with something called adjustment layers, which is what we're going to be learning a lot about in week 3. So adjustment layers are found at the bottom of the layer panel in this little icon that looks like a circle that's light on one side, dark on the other. And if you click on it, you get access to all of these different adjustment layers. And one adjustment layer that I really like is hue saturation. Because with hue saturation, you can move the hue slider around, and you can see what your whole design will look like if you change the color of it. Isn't that cool? You can also click on the colorize option. And you can make the whole design monochromatic, which means it's all going to be just one color. So that's something else that you're welcome to play with. But if if you don't want to add an image because that scares you, and if you don't want to add an adjustment layer because that scares you, if you submit something that looks like this, you will be more than likely to get an A. I would have to say 99.99% of students end up getting an A on this first week's assignment. You have to try really hard to get less than an A. And usually that's because students insist on submitting the wrong file type or not following the directions and submitting something that's completely different from what the assignment asked for. Okay, any questions on anything that I've covered so far? I thought I'd go over some tips for being an effective graphic design student. And I made a little video that goes over some important things to know, especially about backing up your work. I want to talk about how to be an effective student and also how to be successful as a graphic designer. Now, we're in my office right now. This is where I do all of my class sessions with you guys. And this is the computer that I mostly use. In fact, this is a Wacom Cintiq, if you're wondering, and it's really handy because I'm able to draw on the screen, if I can find my little pen here, and I can do really easy photo retouching and everything. So if you're interested in upgrading, this is what I use, but by all means you don't have to use a Wacom Cintiq. I got my Wacom Intuos 3 off eBay, which was $35, I believe, and I still use my Wacom Intuos 3 all the time, and for my on-campus classes I use it, and I do a lot of drawing work with it when I want to kind of draw in bed and lay on the floor and sketch, and I don't want to necessarily be sitting at my desk. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a good workspace. But just if you're interested, that's what I use. Now, but that's just a side thing. I want to talk about something really important, which is a work area that you can learn in and a work area that you can create in. And when you're doing these class sessions and when you're watching me talk, it's a good idea to be in a distraction-free environment. So find a room in your house where you can close the door and lock it and put a sign on that says, "Do not disturb." Also, try to work in an area that doesn't have a television set or a second computer, where you can really focus on the material that's being taught. If you have the TV running while your class session is going on at the same time, that takes up half of your brain power, and you want 100% of your brain power to be focused on learning. Same for when it comes to creating and working on your assignments. Set aside 2 hours every day where you're just going to be working on your homework. Put a sign on the door that says, "Do not disturb me. I am working on my homework." Lock that door, and when that door is locked, no one is allowed to bother you, okay? Turn your cell phone off. You know, even consider putting a voicemail message that says, "Do not call during this time because I'm working on my schoolwork." Now, when the class session is going on, it's a good idea to keep a piece of paper right by your computer where you can take notes. In fact, I would say this is required. I personally still watch a lot of graphic design tutorials and videos on how to use Illustrator and how to use Photoshop, doing different techniques, and it's impossible to sit back and watch those videos without taking notes because there's so many steps involved that you won't remember them all. So keep that piece of paper, keep that pencil or that pen, and write down all the steps as I go through them. Also write down any important things that I say, such as back up your work in 2 locations, write that down, or make sure that you submit this design as a JPEG and not a native file format. Write that down. That's all important stuff. So studies have shown that when you actually physically write down your notes, the information stays in your brain longer than if you type up notes, and certainly the information doesn't stay in your brain if you don't take notes at all. Taking notes is an important part of your mind processing information. Now, final thing about your work area and making it effective for learning and creating this thing, an external hard drive. An external hard drive is a place where you can copy your file and store it outside of your computer. So if anything were to happen to your computer, if your computer crashes and stops working, which has happened to me before, I went to turn on my computer one morning and it just didn't turn on. But if you have that work saved on an external hard drive, you can open it up on another computer. Another good idea is to have Google Drive. And even if you're kind of paranoid, which I am about your work, especially work that you're doing for clients because you're like liable for the safety of that file, consider having an off-site location. Of course, Google Drive is great, but I have a external hard drive, just like this one here, in a safe deposit box at the bank. And every couple months I go and I download all of my files to that hard drive at the bank in a safe deposit box. So if my house were to ever burn down, I have my work stored in a very, very safe location. Okay, so workspace. Make sure it's distraction-free, no TVs, no one knocking on your door, cell phone is turned off. Make sure you're 100% focused on our class sessions. Make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're backing up your work. And make sure you're in the mindset and you're ready to create some awesome stuff. Alrighty, you guys. So it seems like you guys are all more than ready to do your week 1 assignments, which are really easy. It's going to be just your assignment, your assessment, and your discussion. I'm sure, this is for the easiest week, so I'm sure you're all going to get it in on time. I'll open up the rest of the classroom to questions if you guys have any. And if you don't have any questions for now, you are free to go. And feel free to come by on Tuesday or Thursday at this very same time for one-on-one help if you're stuck with anything related to your assignments. Thanks, Amanda, and have a good rest of your evening. Oh, sure. Patience, what's that? Okay, Patience. So what you're talking about in the discussion this week is why you might want to use a vector design and why you might want to use a raster design, and what deliverables would be appropriate for vector and raster. So for instance, if you feel that your advertisement that you're making needs to have photos in it, well, there's no such thing as a vector photo. So you'd have to use, obviously, raster for those photos. But maybe you're making a logo and that logo needs to be able to be shrunk down small to fit on a business card, but also needs to be stretched really large to fit on a billboard. It makes sense that that logo would be in vector mode because logos don't need to be rasters, or logos don't have photographs in them. Logos usually have nice clean edges. So anytime you want something to be really, really small and really, really big at the same time, a vector is a great way to go for that. Does that help you? And you're also welcome to go online and do some research and find different discussions online that talk about vector and raster and why you might use them. And cite those sources in your discussion. Oh, you don't understand how you embed the image. Okay, cool. I'll do that for you right now. Okay, so let's say here we are in our discussion. Let me share my desktop. There's our week 1 discussion. Okay, so to start typing your discussion, you click on this button that says reply here, right? And then you can start typing your discussion here. Then when you get to a point where you want to embed an image to illustrate your point, what you're going to do is go on the internet and find an example of, let's say, a billboard. Okay, Lillian, I'll help you in just a moment. And then you go to Google image search for an example of a billboard. And we'll find a good one. And then once you've found the image that you want to use, you're going to hold down the control button and then click on the image. And then click copy image address. Do you see that, Patience? Patience, for discussions, it doesn't matter whether they're copyright protected or not. The only way it matters is when you're using these images in your designs. And then you're going to go to week 1 discussion, and you'll say, this is an example of a billboard that uses both vector and raster. And now, do you see this button here that looks like a little picture? It looks like a mountain with a sun. You're going to click on that, and then you're going to click on the space here for the URL. And then you're going to hit Command V. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control V. And then you're going to click Update. And see, now your image is inside your discussion. And then you can click Post Reply. Make sense? Okay, so Lillian, now I'll talk about the differences between a native file and a JPEG file. So the native file is the PSD that's going to be saved and backed up to your computer and to your personal hard drive. The JPEG is what you're going to be turning in. So let's save the native file format. Lillian, are you paying attention and are you ready? So after I've made my project, I'm going to go to File, Save As. Do you see this, Lillian? Is there anything that's confusing at this point? File, Save As. Okay. And now, see where it says Format Photoshop? That's what you're going to select. Format Photoshop. And up here at the top is where you're going to name it. You're going to select Photoshop, and then you're going to save. And that is the file that you are going to save on your personal computer and back up on your personal hard drive. The file that you will then be turning in is called a JPEG. And to make a JPEG, you go to File, Export, Save for Web. File, Export, Save for Web. And then from this drop-down menu here, you select the word JPEG, and JPEG high is fine, and then hit Save. And that JPEG is what you're going to be turning in. Does that answer your question? And do you have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to